first of all, we have a welcome video from Chirag Parikh, who's the Deputy Assistant to the President and Executive Secretary of the National Space Council in the United States of America.
Good afternoon. It's an honor to be able to participate virtually with you at today's conference. This event is exceptionally well timed given ongoing developments in India's space policy, the US-India bilateral relationship, and the region. I'd like to congratulate Sanjay Kumar, a world leader in the commercial space industry, and his team at Geospatial World on organizing yet another excellent space event. I'd also like to convey my best wishes to former director of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and my former boss, Robert Cardillo, as well as to everybody participating in this event. Now, my career has evolved around geospatial data from my days as an analyst using geospatial imagery to running space policy in the Obama administration, leading the efforts for increased, improved, and resilient geospatial space capabilities, to my 4 years at NGA working for Mr. Cardillo, running collection operations and the application of geospatial sciences, to working in the private sector, taking advantage of the cloud and AI to process and analyze the large amount of geospatial data that we all see today. Today, I'd like to speak briefly about the changes in the global context for geospatial data, US policy, and how both of these factors relate to our cooperation with India and the Indo-Pacific region. Now, as attendees at this event know very well, the geospatial market is changing and diversifying rapidly. And long gone are the days where a user of geospatial data could easily take into account all the data being captured by geospatial satellites and other geospatial and locational sources. In addition to long-standing phenomenologies in the visual spectrum, we now have geospatial capabilities that are in other parts of the electromagnetic spectrum, from synthetic aperture radar to radio frequency data to hyperspectral and infrared, and a huge quantity of non-imagery based geospatial data as well. We're also seeing major advances in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and cloud computing, all being brought to bear on geospatial data to power downstream applications. Indeed, the quantity and diversity of geospatial data being collected has created opportunities for all humankind, but new challenges for capitalizing on all this data, making it accessible, analyzing it, and enabling effective understanding of the data in a way that can support a range of downstream applications continues to be problematic. Seeking such effective understanding of this data is vital if we are to, as Vice President Harris says, connect the high tech to the low tech, so that these geospatial systems can be fully leveraged to help solve problems here on Earth, whether it's addressing the climate crisis, supporting agricultural production, promoting city planning and infrastructure development, responding to natural disasters, and of course, enhancing our national security. Now, on this last point, on national security, we've seen the value of commercial geospatial data play out in the context of Russia's aggression against Ukraine, where we've seen verifiable evidence of military buildup, military operations, and damage and atrocities. Now, as the civil, commercial, and national security space sectors increasingly overlap, it's incumbent that we have effective policies and enabling resources to fully take advantage of both the opportunity and growth of geospatial data. As the Deputy Assistant to the President and Executive Secretary of the National Space Council, I directly work with the Vice President, who chairs our National Space Council, and enable our space policies to reflect the Biden-Harris administration's broader policy objectives. To achieve these objectives, we must have a council that represents our growing space enterprise. And now this includes those that you would expect, like the NASA Administrator, the Secretary of Defense, and the Director of National Intelligence for national security purposes. This includes the Secretary of State for international partnership. But this also has other entities who use space information, such as the Secretary of Agriculture and the Secretary of Interior, who are members of the Space Council. And our council also includes those who enable our workforce, such as our Secretary of Education and our Secretary of Labor. And those who enable our commercial space enterprise are also represented here on the council, such as the Secretary of Commerce and the Secretary of Transportation. Among the Council's many tasks is developing and, very importantly, implementing our national space policies and strategies, as well as synchronizing the ever-growing civil, commercial, and national security space activities in furtherance of our objectives and policy. Our space policy is guided primarily by the President's 2021 Space Priorities Framework, and the policy highlights the need to maintain a vibrant space enterprise across all sectors and foster the policy and regulatory environment that enables a competitive and burgeoning U.S. commercial space sector. As space activities evolve, the norms, the rules, and the principles that guide outer space activities must also evolve. Irresponsible activities in space, government, commercial, or otherwise, can have a downstream effect on all space operations, from humans on the ISS to security to economic and societal needs that rely upon space systems. This is why we've placed such an emphasis in this administration on the Artemis Accords, whose membership continues to expand. More and more nations continue to see that this non-legally binding commitment is in the best interest of not only their own nations, but also the long-term sustainability of peaceful exploration of outer space. And we hope nations continue to align themselves to what I believe is a set of non-controversial principles. Space sustainability is incumbent to how we can ensure continued benefits from geospatial systems in, through, and from space. This goes from mitigating debris generation to properly deorbiting satellites to cleaning up the space environment. So how does all of this relate to our cooperation with India in a bilateral context, as well as jointly in the Indo-Pacific region? First, geospatial data is a leading component of the U.S.-India space cooperative efforts, and the United States and India are both world-class leaders in this area. Commercially, the annual bilateral trade in geospatial services is estimated at over $1 billion, and it continues to grow rapidly. On the civil side, India has hosted international ground stations for Landsat, and of course, as many people know, ISRO is preparing to launch the state-of-the-art NASA-ISRO synthetic aperture radar mission, NISAR, which will be the first radar imaging satellite to use dual frequencies. And on the security side, we previously signed a basic exchange and cooperation agreement for geospatial cooperation, also known as a BECA. Our respective policies on geospatial data are also coming closer into alignment. India's new national space policy notes the importance of enabling open data access from ISRO's remote sensing satellites, while laying out a clear data policy related to ground sampling distance. This dovetails with U.S. policy efforts, as well as with what the White House has announced as the 2023 being the year of open science, to promote open data and open science policies across our government and around the world. While geospatial data is a leading element of our current bilateral space cooperation, the U.S.-India partnership already goes far beyond geospatial to a range of other activities, including space exploration, the U.S.-India Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies that met earlier this year, as well as the Advanced Domains Defense Dialogue that met just last month in Delhi. And increasingly, we are deepening our bilateral cooperation in new areas, such as human spaceflight, while expanding our commercial space cooperation to new areas, thanks in large part to the changes called in India's new national space policy. I expect our bilateral partnership will continue to advance rapidly following the upcoming official state visit of Prime Minister Modi to the United States this month. We believe this visit will strengthen our two countries' commitment to a free, open, prosperous, and secure Indo-Pacific, and our shared resolve to elevate our strategic technology partnership, which includes in space. The National Space Council continues to lead U.S. international space partnerships, and we're thankful to our Indian counterparts for continued collaboration to ensure our highest levels of government recognize and encourage the value of space for our nations, our alliance, and for the world. Space in general and geospatial data in particular are also crucial efforts to our joint effort with India, Japan, and Australia in the Indo-Pacific as part of the Quad. Within the Quad, I chair the Space Cooperation Working Group for the U.S. side. and we were very pleased with the outcomes of the recent Quad Leaders Summit. In addition to continuing robust work on leveraging space to address the climate crisis and extreme weather events, the Quad leaders, for the first time, aligned on a shared commitment to open sharing of civil Earth observation data, expanding the group's work to commercial space cooperation, which I believe will have positive implications for our respective economies as well as the region. And our leaders announced their intention to share expertise and experience in space situational awareness. Space data also continues to provide strong support to other initiatives within the Quad, including the Climate Working Group and the Indo-Pacific Partnership for Maritime Domain Awareness. I hope that this event's proceedings will lead to a closer alignment on geospatial data programs, policies, and applications, as well as strengthen U.S.-India cooperation bilaterally in the region and through the Quad. We should also continue to keep in mind the broader policy context. Moving forward, we should think about how do we better align, integrate, and most importantly, implement respective national as well as bilateral policies on geospatial data, space, AI, and emerging technologies. I'm so proud of the strength of the respective nations. As someone born in India, as someone who is proud to serve in the United States government, and just somebody who loves space, I cannot be more pleased about all the work that you are trying to achieve and that you are doing. My best wishes to all, and sincerest thank you to everyone for allowing me to speak, and best wishes. Thank you.